Procreate can be a great tool for traditional artists working in physical mediums to do some composition work ahead of time and really experiment and play with what they want to do. I'm going to show you a few of the tools that I use to do this on a regular basis. Go ahead, if you don't have it downloaded already, go to your app store. You're going to click on that app store and type in Procreate. Once Procreate is done downloading, go ahead and push open. Now that you have Procreate open, push the top left where it says Procreate, and let's check and make sure that we're using the same version. I'm using version 5.3.15. If you're using an older or newer version, some things might be different, and I suggest Googling it to find out how to do things that don't appear the same as on my screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete the example artwork that's here by pushing select on the top right, tapping each of the example artworks that we want to delete, press delete, and delete again. Okay, let's start a project. There are 3 different ways that you can start a project on Procreate. 1, you can import an existing file. 2, you can bring in a photo. And 3, if you push the plus button on the far right side, it's going to open a new canvas menu. So on here, there's going to be different templates that you can use that are already pre-sized, or we're going to go ahead and push this icon that's on the top right of that menu. This is our customization area for our canvas. We can choose the width, the height, the DPI, which is the dots per inches, which we're not going to worry about so much, and maximum layers, which we are going to use layers. I'll show you later, but we aren't going to use that many, so don't worry about it. All right, let's go ahead and change our canvas size. So let's say I want to do a 9 by 12. I'm going to go down to the bottom left where pixels is highlighted and change it to inches. And then if you see up the top, it says width. I'm going to change that to 9 and the height to 12. Okay, DPI is set at 132 by default at the beginning. And like I said, not going to worry about maximum layers yet. Okay, go ahead and push create on the top right, and it's going to automatically open our new screen for us in our editing mode. Before we go over specific tools that I use to edit my work in Procreate, I'm going to show you a little bit more about how it's organized. To get out of editing mode and back into our original gallery screen, you're going to go ahead and push gallery at the top left corner of the menu. Okay, this is your gallery view, and essentially this works like a tabletop where you have different pieces of art that you have either placed individually on the table, so they're all spread out and you can choose which one you want to work on, or you actually can stack them as a way to organize them. To form a stack, we're going to need more than one piece of art. So let's go ahead and duplicate the one that we have. Go up and press select and then tap on the existing artwork that we have. And then back at the top menu, press duplicate. Okay, now that we have 2 artworks in our gallery, we are going to stack them together. Go ahead and push the X on the far right of the menu and then push select and then tap on each of the 2 artworks and then back up, press stack. To access the stack, we need to push the X again on the far right of the menu and then tap on our stack. So now your stack is open and you can see both of the artworks that are in the stack laid out individually. To unstack the artwork, you're going to push select and then tap on both of the artworks. And then you're going to hold one down with your finger until they both jump. And then you can move your finger up, drag it up to hover over stack. You're keeping your finger down the whole time you're doing this. And then you'll see the screen change and it opens back to the gallery view where you can drag your finger back down, still keeping your finger down, and let go. Okay, let's build a composition. Go ahead and tap on one of those artworks. Okay, we have our artwork here on the screen and we're referring to this as our canvas. So you can actually pinch it with 2 of your fingers and move it around, manipulate where it is and how you can see it at what angle, which can make it a little easier to work with. We are going to start with some basic drawing tools. Looking at the top menu, you can see there is a paintbrush icon. Go ahead and click that. A brush library popped up, and these are all the different types of brushes that you can use. On the further left part, there's recents, and then they're categorized into different things like inking, drawing, all kinds of different things. So if you go ahead and click on the rounded brush, it will open an additional menu where you're able to actually really customize each brush. I'm not going to get into that. Press done or cancel, and then anywhere off the side of the screen to get rid of this brush menu. Now you can use your finger or your stylus to draw on your canvas. On the left-hand side, you'll see a bar with 2 adjustments on it. The top one controls the size of your brush, and the bottom controls the opacity or transparency of the brush stroke. To change the color that I'm drawing with, I'm going to go to the very top right where the circle is. So when I click on the circle, it's going to open up a color disc and a couple palettes, including a history palette. So the way that this disc works is from top to bottom, left to right. On the left-hand side of the inside of the sphere, you have your saturation. So the further to the left, the less saturated, the further to the right, the more saturated. And then you have value going from top to bottom. So the higher values are on top, lower values are on the bottom. And then on the outside ring is your basic hue picker. I can now paint with my custom new color, but let's say that I want to match a color that's already on my canvas. I'm going to go to the left, there's that little box. Click on that and it's going to give you a target circle, and you can click on the area that you want to copy the color. The next tool is your smudge tool. And like the paintbrush tool, you can click on the icon, the smudge icon, and it will open another menu where you can customize the look of your sphere. You can also utilize the adjustments on the left-hand side for size or strength. Handy tool, tap with 2 fingers if you want to undo and 3 fingers to redo. It's important to note that if I leave the editing screen and go back into gallery mode, when I open up my canvas again, I'm not going to be able to undo and redo previous work. Moving right along, the next tool is the eraser, which works the same as the others. If you click on it twice, it's going to give you customization options. And you can also use the bar on the left to adjust your opacity and your size. Okay, let's talk about layers. Go ahead and push the layer icon, which is right next to the eraser. This screen shows you how your work is layered. So let's go ahead and start with something simpler. See where it says layer 1? Go ahead and swipe left. It's going to come up with lock, duplicate, or clear. Let's just push clear and start with something fresh, okay? All right, so now all we're seeing right now is the background color, which we can tap on and actually change it to whatever we want. This is our new background. We're going to push done. So if our background color is kind of like an opaque piece of paper, then the next layer on top is going to start as a transparency, a transparent sheet of plastic, say, that you can see all the way through. So if we're going to click on layer 1, it's going to give us some more options. We can rename, select, copy, do a bunch of different stuff. I'm not going to worry about that. But it is selected, so now I know that whatever I am drawing is going to be on this first transparent layer. So I'm going to go to my draw function, and this over here on the far right is my color wheel. So I've got white right now, so I'm going to keep that, and then I'm going to draw. Now if I want to see this without a background color, I'm going to open my layers, and then I'm going to deselect this checked box here on the bar that says background color. It's no longer visible. To add another layer, I'm going to push this plus button right here, and it gives me another layer. I can do something different with this one. Let's say I'm going to draw over the top, make it a little bit bigger. And here's the power of layers. I can go back in and decide what I want to see and what I don't want to see. So I can kind of play around with different ideas and say, do I like it better like this or like this? I also have the option to manipulate individual layers. So if I click on the small N on one of the layers, it will bring up another menu. I have a lot of options here. I'm going to mess around with the opacity, and you can see how just the pink layer is affected. Okay, I'm going to clear the work that I've already done. So layer 2, I'm going to swipe left. It's going to allow me to press delete. Layer 1 needs to stay available, so when I swipe left, clear is my option. So I'm going to go ahead and press clear, and then I'm going to change my background color back to white. Let's take a look at the left side of the menu. Just to the right of our gallery button, we have our tools. The first icon is our actions menu. If you press on the first one on the left, add, it gives you different options. Insert a file, insert a photo, take a photo, add text, cut, copy canvas, and paste. We'll use all of these pretty regularly. With the action menu still open, we're going to go down to insert a photo. I'll click on the photo that I want to bring into Procreate. And here it is as a new layer on my editing screen. Adding text is easy. You can go on your action menu down to text and push on that. It will open up a keyboard for you, and you're able to move around the text and resize as you'd like. Okay, let's say you change your mind about the text. You can use the 2-finger trick to undo, or with the layer still selected, you can go onto your action menu, go down to cut, and it will disappear. If I want the text back, I can go down and push paste, and it will reappear. Let's say I want to copy everything on the canvas just as I'm seeing it. I'm going to find copy canvas and press that. When I press paste, it will copy the canvas as I see the whole thing into a new layer. Next up under the action menu is canvas. First up is crop and resize, then head over to the right, hit settings, and that will allow you to resize your canvas and change some of the properties like DPI. This will also allow you to resize your files so you can export smaller files. So still under the action menu, we're going to go to the third option, which is share. And this is where you're able to choose which file type you want to export and how you want to export it. This next option, video, is pretty fun. You have the option to have Procreate record the progress of your artwork. So you can actually replay a time lapse of what you did digitally. Next to video is preferences. I actually don't mess with anything under here. Next to preferences is the help menu. I haven't actually used anything here, but I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff in here to explore. I like to keep things simple, so I'm going to go back into my layers and clean up a couple of the layers that I don't need moving forward. Back to the very top menu, we're going to move on to adjustments. So under adjustments, we first have hue, saturation, and brightness. Down at the bottom, you have sliders where you can make adjustments to whatever layer is currently selected. Color balance allows you to go in and dictate the way that the hue leans on your shadows, midtones, and highlights individually. Curves allows you to adjust the exposure of one layer at a time. So first of all, gamma will cover all of the different hues. The right side of the graph represents your highlights and the left side of the graph your shadows. So when you're adjusting the right-hand side, you're going to affect the lights. And if you're working on the left side of the graph, you are going to affect the darks. You can also adjust for the color individually. In this case, I can remove the reds from the highlights or add red to the shadows. You can also switch from working with the entire layer to targeting single areas by choosing the pencil, and then you can also mess around with the brush so that it can be larger, smaller, or a different texture. Gradient map basically gives you different filters you can play with. It could be a fun way to get out of your comfort zone with color. The next 3 options are all about different kinds of blur you can add. The blur will be applied to a layer, single layer, unless you choose the pencil, which again you can use for a more targeted approach. The next set of options allow you to mess with the texture of the layer or using the pencil. The last option on the adjustment menu is the clone tool. The clone tool allows you to copy one area of the canvas onto another. Make sure you have your transparency all the way up and you can change the pen size. The little white circle is the area that is going to be copied. So you can move the circle to where you want to start and then take your stylus or your pen to the area where you want it copied to. Next, we're going to move on to one of my favorite tools, which allows you to remove the background. There's not a really simple way to do it on this program, but I'm going to show you a couple ways. The first option is automatic. Basically, put your finger or stylus on an area that you want to remove and drag your finger to the right and see what's happening. When you see that it becomes like a negative image, that part is selected. To remove the selected area, you go back to the action menu and down to cut. Sometimes I like to change the background color to something really bright so that it's obvious to me where I have taken away the background or whatever area it is that I'm intending to erase. To change the background, go to your layers, select your layer background, and then a color picker will come up. So you're able to click any of the colors in the palette or anywhere on this sphere. Now it's super obvious where I'm erasing. Okay, the next option is freehand. With freehand, I can draw around the shape that I want to either preserve or cut. On the far left bottom corner, you have add and you have subtract. So if I have add selected and I draw a shape, I go to cut, then whatever was in that shape is going to disappear. Or I can switch it and put subtract, and then whatever is in that shape will be preserved and the negative space around it will disappear. Okay, so I cut the image. Now if I choose to paste the image, it's actually going to paste onto a new layer. So you'll see that I have this new cutout on an isolated layer, no background. To move my new layer around, I've got this arrow button up top that I can use, and that's kind of my moving and resizing tool. So I can go ahead and make it bigger or smaller. And if it's selected, I can also use my fingers to move it around, and a pinch or an expand with 2 fingers to change the size of it. Okay, I want to go in and finish cleaning up the area around my image. I'm going to go back to automatic and see how that works. I cut the selected area, but there are still some places where I need a little work. To fine-tune the work, go ahead and get into your eraser tool and you can clean up any details. Let's say you want to put a different background behind our subject. I'm going to turn the visibility off on my pink background layer and go into my photos. I'll go back into my action menu and add over to where it says insert a photo. I made a screenshot of the photo that I want to use for a background so that it would be at the top of my photo library, but there's also a search function that you can use. Okay, I imported the photo that I want to use as a background, and it comes up as a new layer in my project. Let's zoom in on this a little bit and then head back to our layers function. Okay, as you can see, the new layer that we just imported is on top of our subject. So that's why we can't see it. So if we want to be able to see it, what you need to do is put your finger or stylus onto the layer that you want to move. Move it just a touch, hold it down till it jumps, and then pull it down to switch places with the bottom layer. Let's go ahead and select the cutout image, our subject, and resize it so that it fits a little bit more comfortably over the background. There are a few things that we can do to help the subject feel more natural in the new background. All right, I'm going to switch layers, so go ahead and select the background layer to begin with. I might quickly resize the background again, and then because the background is further in the distance than my subject, I am going to do some things to push it back visually. I might mess with the value a little bit, lower the saturation. And then I think we're going to go in and use one of our blur tools to soften the background and bring more focus onto our subject. And then we can switch our layer back over to our subject, zoom in, and use our smudge tool to soften some of the edges and think about where, when we're doing our painting, maybe we would have softer edges. All right, so that was just a quick overview. I hope that you'll be able to get started and dig into Procreate more, find out how you want to use it, and that it will be a good tool for you in being more creative and prepared to jump into a painting.